I did it. I bought a project bike. I found this bike on a Facebook group. Just some guy wanted to sell it. He said it was so that's what I've been looking for a while. It is a YZ, 2003 Yz125. Just the engine's not running and brakes are seized. Let's see if this bad boy has compression. Let's see what we get. We're aiming for 100. Oh, there's no brakes. Taller than my bike. So we got compression of 90 psi, but I don't know, is this seized? Has it just seized on me? God.
Turns out it wasn't seized, just had to give it a little bit of a push. But yeah, had a quick gaze into the barrel, see if there was any chunks, and nothing there. All looked pretty good.
As I found out from having a look into the engine, it's going to definitely need to be taken out, had a look at, and probably done a rebuild. So I'm just going to take everything off, strip everything, and yeah, just do a refurbish. So we'll bring this 03 YZ125 back to life.
I actually bought this bike around 5 months ago, and I've just had the footage sitting here for a couple months. I had my Cozzy race, and I've had Deadarang and some other videos in between. So have been putting this one off. So it is just been one in the back, but I'm gonna get into it now. I bought this bike more for not really to make any money on it, just for the experience of building bikes, getting to know bikes since I've just started getting into them, and I really want to learn about it, which will be really fun. Just starting with stripping the bike all the way down to the frame, because as I said, I'm going to do a full refurbish from everything up, painting frames, new plastics, full engine rebuild, just literally everything you can think of is going to be done to the bike. And now I got one of the guys in work just to quickly help me out, because I was a bit of a noob back then with motorbike stuff. I've watched a lot of videos recently, like the Bearded Mechanic. I've learnt a lot since building this bike, and now I had to get Dad in as well. So we just were looking at the engine, took the engine out. It's gonna be a cool build. I have some really good ideas for it of what it's gonna turn out. But yeah, should be really fun build.
So I'm just going to take the engine home and work on that at home. So yeah, we'll see what's wrong with it, why it won't go. Yeah.
I'm gonna start with taking the whole engine apart, stripping it back to just the cases, taking out the carb, piston, removing the flywheel with this like little special tool to stop the crank from turning over, removing all the case bolts. A good tip is, if you forget where all the bolts goes, just to get like a little piece of cardboard, cut out some holes, and just have like a little reference point, such as like the oil cap, and just put them to the left or right of like a little marked line. After that, we had to move on to the clutch, and we had to makeshift our own clutch clamp because I couldn't be bothered buying one. So we just got a bit of hardwood, drilled out a couple holes, and then cut out a divot so that we could fit the socket in to just quickly snap it off, which made it pretty easy, light work of it. Then we moved to splitting the clutch case, and here is where we found our issue, found out why it wasn't turning over. The bolt that goes into the crank wasn't torqued up all the way. This is why you torque all your bolts down to what it tells you to, and it was hitting on the case on the other side and was catching. At least this is where we think the issue lies. Guess we'll find out when we start putting it back together and start it up. Continuing with the teardown, we split the cases, which was surprisingly easy. Don't know if that's good or bad. Pressed out all the bearings with a hydraulic press that was actually made by my great popper. He just used like a car jack and some old scrap framing and just whacked it all together and yeah, used it. It was pretty good. After pressing all the bearings out, I coated the case with some strong degreaser stuff to just give the engine a little more pop. To clarify, I'm not making this build as perfect as possible. As much as I would love to, I still want to be able to take it out, rip it, ride it, maybe dabble in a little bit of motocross, and also because I don't have any sponsors and infinite amount of money to spend on it. Back to the bike, taking the swing arm and shock apart so I can give it a good wash and scrub down, because there is a thick layer of grime on that shit. It is gross. I replaced all the wheel bearings front and back, and also going to put on a new rear sprocket as well. Onto the wheel bearings. If you want to make this process as easy for yourself as possible, I'd recommend putting them in the freezer so that they can contract and they just make it a bit smaller. And even your engine bearings as well, when you're doing all your case stuff, makes it 1,000 times easier. You just drop them in so easy. We were using a bearing puller to take out the old bearings. The puller kit's so useful, even for just for general bike maintenance stuff. I use them all the time. Once the old ones are out, heat up the hubs nice and warm and drop all the bearings in. You got to be quick though, because as soon as the bearings touch the metal, they heat up quick and they expand and hit the wall, so you just got to tap them in nice and flush around. Once they're all done, you just put in your seals and put in your wheel spacers, grease them up. The bike actually came with brand new tires on them. They had chicken strips still on them when I picked it up. So thankfully we didn't have to change those, because as you know, changing tires is a fucking nightmare. So we've finally had all of the parts come in for the 125. So now it's time to put it back together and hopefully it runs. This looks weird, but trust me, put your cases in the oven. If your mum or wife allows you, put them in. My mum had to take a little bit of convincing, but it just makes it a whole lot easier. Just drops the bearings in so smooth. So we dropped them all in, tapped them in nice and flush. If they didn't go in nice, but it was all pretty easy, smooth sailing, none got stuck. Then we torqued up all the bearing retainer plates, got all the crank seals in. A couple of them had to be a few mil below flush. Now moving on to the fun stuff, putting the motor back together. We slid the transmission in, keeping it all together when we took it out so that we didn't have to fuck around with all the gears and stuff. Put the fork and the pins through, reading the manual the whole way, because it just tells you where you need to add oil on stuff. And I just got it for free off the Yamaha website, and it gives you all the torque specs. Popped the new non-pitted crank in, then used a crank puller to pull that sucker in so she was nice and snug, which was quite satisfying. Just had to give it a few taps so that it would go all the way in. Yeah, also to make sure you keep the rod out of the way of the case so it doesn't get caught and bend, and then you have to waste your brand new crank. Fitted up the rest of the shifter and gave it a little test to make sure none of the gears were locking up. Fourth was locking up, but Dad fooled around with that and got it fixed. Time to put the cases back together, adding some sealant, making sure none of it gets into the engine itself, and just closing up with the crank puller. Dad decided to put the F1 on, so that's why there's no audio, because that was just playing in the background. Goes to show how long ago it was. Quick little side tangent. If anyone watched my last video of Dead Orang Dead Zone, that was just cooked. I roasted my clutch 5 times over the weekend. So I put a new clutch in after the race, and I put an 11 tooth sprocket on, which is a little bit extreme. Dad told me to do it, but I think it's just going to help with me not riding the clutch so much, which is what was burning me out, and just I was losing so many spots in the races. So I've tested it out. I really love it because Mitch Brightmore runs, I think, an 11:45. But I really like it. I'm really keen to try it out in the race. Hopefully, I do not roast my clutch. Always got to try your things that suit. You got to set up your bike for hey. Back to the engine. So we've put the shifter mechanism in, we put the kickstart gear in, and we're just putting in the bolt that was loose in the bike that was caught. We think was causing it to not turn over. So we torqued that up to spec. It definitely wasn't. I think they just did it up as hard as they could because the crank would spin and you couldn't get it to torque. So yeah, we had to hold the top. So put the clutch on, put the clutch basket on, put in the clutch assembly. We had to pull out our little jerry rig, which split instantly. So we had to fix that up, put it in, torqued it up. Now putting all the clutch plates and fibers in, putting oil in between just so that they can soak. I didn't opt to buy a new one because it was already pretty good and they're very expensive. Putting in all the springs, tightening them up, torquing them up.
So I've gotten the frame sent in to go get paint matched so I can get it that nice metallic Yamaha blue. I'm also going to clean all the aluminium on the swing arm and whatnot just to get all it's got white rust or whatever on it. I'm going to Scotch Brite the exhaust pipe, then paint it black, and yeah, just clean everything up and make it all shiny.
Right, so I've got all the alloy bits on the bike. I've got a bucket of hot truck wash. And yeah, we're just gonna try and scrub all this dirt off.
and see what damage we can do. So just spent the last 3 hours cleaning all the bits. They're not perfect. We're gonna go over them with the barrel grinder, but they look better than they were before. Wow, that was smooth.
As I said, this video isn't for educational purposes. I'm just doing it for a bit of fun. So if I do something wrong, please give me a little bit of slack. I'm new to all this stuff, so just having a bit of fun with it and see what I can learn.
I've got all the rust off on the pipe, and I've just roughed it up a bit for the paint, and I've just taped up the stainless on the muffler, and yeah, I'm just going to paint this black as well. Alright, wait 10 minutes and we'll see how it looks. It's done. Let them fuckers dry. Basically, that's what they're attacking.